Do you have a website, an external presence, employees, an office? Any of these things can be compromised and attacked. How are you defending these assets? Have you penetration tested these public assets? Start 2017 by taking a proactive approach to securing your vulnerable areas. Black Hills Information Security has been helping companies find their weaknesses since 2008. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com and see how they can help you sleep better at night. Welcome back, everyone, to Startup Security Weekly. Wanted to mention Grim and their awesome Crossbow product, which is just now hitting the market. And if you're looking to test your security architecture, you should look no further than Grim and Crossbow. And we'll talk, I think, I really like this product, Michael, primarily because there's a whole story behind it and the potential category they can create, which is interesting. Which I won't necessarily share the whole thing on air. I shared with you some of that story this morning. So I think Crossbow is going to be really awesome in terms of solving that problem of are my security solutions working? And if they're not, where are they falling down? And I think there hasn't been too many products on the market to address that issue. And I was excited to hear their announcement at DEF CON this year and continue to help them promote it. Also, I'd like to promote a webcast, domaintools.com/Security Weekly. Joff Thayer, myself, Tim, and Kyle from Domain Tools will be presenting on getting rid of those bad domains and IP addresses in your environment, doing that in an open source and easy way, as well as exploring some of the benefits of using Domain Tools Iris. So make sure you check that out. Alrighty, GE's new CEO and his communication techniques.
Yeah, it's amazing. We all still talk about Jack Welch as the CEO, and Emil has been in there for a really, 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 really long time. Well, he's out, so there's a new one. And what I love about this is that when you go look at it, he basically says, "All right, look, if you want to be the CEO of GE, you've got to be one hell of a communicator. Like, that's table stakes to get in." And he opens up his letter on his first day and says, "I have focus on 3 things. That's it." And what people will say is, well, hold on. Why weren't there more? Why didn't he do more? If you've ever worked with me, I talk about 3s and 5s. So the thing that's interesting about it, and that's really it. Like, in terms of what he was excited about and everything else, he was there. That's fine. It's a neat read. If you've studied this, it's great. It does say that, by the way, they considered 23 different people for the role of CEO at GE, and they were all unparalleled communicators. Now, typically you're going to say that, but let's be fair. If you're going to be at that level, you've got to be really good. If you're in security today, you need to be able to communicate. So when you say to somebody, "All right, let me give you all the reasons. Here's 17 reasons," or you haven't thought them out, you haven't distilled down, they're not going to pay attention. Now, David Letterman popularized the top 10 list, and we always went, I gave you top 10 list. No, I can't remember it. I can't. Even if it's funny, even if all 10 are funny, you can't remember it. Turns out, typically, we can remember about 3 things. Now, you can argue you can remember 4. You can argue you can remember 5. There's if you ever did Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, he talks about 6. A list of 6. Most people who know me know that I am pretty aggressive on 3, and sometimes I'll do 5. And then what I do to get around it is, like, you can have 3 things, and then it can each have 3 subs. That's fine. You can totally do that, because what you're doing is I'm giving you a headline of 3 things that matter. So what I always tell people is do 3. If you can't do 3, do 5. Don't do 4. Don't do 2. Don't do 6. Do 3 or do 5. GE's guy, right? Probably one of the better communicators in the world, said, "Yeah, I'm going to do 3. I want people to understand that we've got 3 things. That's it. So that's all we're going to do. We're 3 things. If we do these 3 things, we're going to be in good shape." And this is why this becomes important.
Knowing that, Michael, and having you put that in my head, I'm a huge fan of 3s. And when you saw our sales presentation this morning, you'll notice there's a group of 3 and then another group of 3 and another.
I loved
it.
3. I totally loved it. Yeah, no, that's why I got it.
Yes.
But, and you've got a lot of experience in this. I mean, if you go look at commercial marketing, they give you a list of 3. Sometimes they'll give you a list of 5. Every now and then there's the one thing, right? There's a call out here, there's a this or whatever. But that's the way it goes, and that's okay. Like, that's healthy. That's how these things work, and that's perfectly okay. Where it matters then is that if you're a startup, what are the 3 reasons that this person you're presenting to needs to know? Or what are the 3 things that drive you? If you're in the enterprise today, what does your team do? I talk to a lot of people at the executive level, and I'll say, what are your initiatives for the year? And what I find is kind of fascinating is that if it's really the executive suite, they're pretty much dialed in. I got to do X, I got to do Y, I got to Z. If you go and you ask the security folks, you go, all right, what are the things you're trying to get done this year? Oh, Michael, I've got so many. I got like 20 things, and then this guy's got 20. I worked with the team earlier this year. They had like 37 initiatives this year. Mm-hmm. And I said to them, I said, can you possibly accomplish those? I don't know. I said, well, hold on. Like, why don't we go back, right? The Department of Labor tells us there's 1,856 hours per year per person, and that's before you account for time off and all sorts of other stuff and administrivia. I said, why don't we just say it's 1,400 hours per person? Mm-hmm. All right. Well, how many hours do you have allocated to those projects, those 37 projects? How many people do you have on your team? And is there a mismatch? Oh, yeah. By the way, huge mismatch. They didn't know the answer to it. Well, I said, okay, well, what are the top 3 initiatives of the company?
Yeah. And how do you align with those? And I think that when people ask us, how do I communicate with the business leaders, that rule of 3s, well, might sound a little corny, right? Especially if you're in a technical job and you're like, I got these 37 things I defined, boil them down into 3 when you go talk to your business leaders. I think because that's more of the way that they're thinking. And if you can align it to the 3 things that they're thinking about as well, even better.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And if you can't, then then give me 3 reasons why. So here's the thing: people have heard me say it for years, but I just wanted to point out that some of the best communicators in the world, some of the best leaders in the world, they use 3. And does it take work to get down to the 3 things? Absolutely. Is it worth it? 100%. All right, this next one I threw in for you: tools. We haven't done a tools list in a while, so this is the 10 tools to streamline your sales process. It gives us some names, and so I was kind of curious. So it says Salesforce. You and I both, right? So I have a love-hate relationship with CRMs, and I'm back to just hating them and not doing it.
You're not alone.
Salesforce, yeah, and you know what? We keep talking about bringing somebody on. We're gonna have to get somebody on to talk about the challenges, like the real challenges of CRMs, because you can't go a day without somebody talking about it. But they basically said, okay, you need Salesforce. HubSpot. Have you used HubSpot? You know what HubSpot is?
I just want to go back to Salesforce because I think that. They're in the book Play Bigger, and was listening to that with kind of like a chip on my shoulder almost against Salesforce, and not what they're doing because they do have a great product. However, it's not a fit for everyone. What I've experienced in the number of businesses that I've had the discussion, many of them my own, that when we talk about what we should use for a CRM, Salesforce is still on the high price side, in value side really for a smaller organization, and it is not only the monetary, like hard cost, but the cost of implementing it is really high. It's really like super complex. Like it's a huge time buy-in. And when you're a small organization, even a startup, those 2 things are going to hold you back. Now, what your investors are likely going to say is, well, if you want to play with the big boys and girls, you have to use Salesforce. And I'm like, oh, okay, like I get it. And yes, I'm setting myself up for a big, project, but that's kind of I think there's a lot of better options for smaller startup type businesses since we're on Startup Security Weekly, other than Salesforce. If they're the category king though, Michael, who's the prince, right? And that's where I think we can have a lot of debate in that space. And maybe there's 2 categories. Maybe there's a smaller business CRM that is the leader in that category, and maybe there's a larger one. I'm not sure.
No, I think you're right, because what I've started to notice is that there's people who say, okay, well, we're the Google Apps or the G Suite CRM. Well, we're the Office 365 CRM. Well, we're the small business CRM. Yeah. We're the whatever CRM. But it's kind of funny is I've looked at it the same way. I'll tell you that the thing that kind of caught me. So most of the CRMs will say we'll give you 30 days for free, and then you can pay as you go by the month. And as soon as you're not happy with it, you can back out. And it's great because you needed some time. And most of these CRMs, like I'd spend time, I try to get it figured out, and it just kind of blow up. The other thing I've learned is if you want to use a CRM, you really have to understand your process. You have to know how it works. You got to have a way of tracking it, understanding it, and man, there's just so many questions that you don't know when you go into it, and you're like, well, I don't really know how I'm going to work, right? Which is a pro and a con. Where I've kind of come back around to it is go, yeah, all right, to your point, hey, I'm going to have to just invest in Salesforce. But Salesforce wants their money up front. I don't blame them. I think it's a great strategy. So they want their money up front. You don't really get a sense of whether it works or not. You got to buy all sorts of other stuff to it. You got to really invest the time to figure it out. And for me, it's like learning a new language. And so it's like, okay, let's go figure those pieces out. So yeah, it's been interesting. But I can see how this will make a difference from a sales perspective, because I got to tell you, and you and I have already talked about this. If you go to, in fact, we got another story that's going to come up on this. If you say to somebody, what's the average time from first contact to close deal? I don't know. Okay, well, you should, right? And ideally, your CRM is going to help you do that. How many calls or touch points do you have to have with a customer or a client before they convert? Oh, I don't know. No, guys, you need to know that stuff. And the other thing I found, especially with people who understand how to use Salesforce, is you should be able to show me the 20% of your clients that are generating the most, and you go focus on those. Or if you're a large organization, you can show me the reps that are selling the best, and I can go see how they're using Salesforce, right? Stuff like that. So there's a lot of really good insights from it. I can totally see how that works. HubSpot. Have you used HubSpot?
I have not.
Are you familiar with it? Are you familiar with it?
I've heard of them before, yeah. They also have a CRM, apparently.
It's an interesting strategy how they're trying to do stuff. I actually tested out their CRM, and it was interesting. HubSpot's really expensive, and what they're all about, and I might get their stuff wrong. I'm going to call it automated inbound marketing. So the idea is you pay HubSpot. Now, I think it's very expensive for startups and small businesses, but depending on the ticket size of what you're selling and what your volume is, I think in some circumstances it pays for itself. And the idea is, somebody comes to your website, you get a sense of where they are, what they're looking at, and you can send them the appropriate content. But then you follow up with them based on where they were. So if you understand what the customer journey is like, and you understand the questions that they're going to have, and you understand how all those pieces come together, well, then you can serve that up for them. And it's demand, right? It's inbound, and it serves it up so that by the time they're ready to buy, you've educated them, you've answered their questions, you've given them control over what the process looks like, and it should ease conversion. I like it in theory. It's really expensive, and so you've got to ask yourself how many customers you're serving at a time before you really need something like this. But that said, there's HubSpot, and then you've got others. So if you're more, and I appreciate, I'm probably going to screw up some of the categories here, but Marketo does stuff around this. Eloqua, bigger companies are using Eloqua. There's a lot of stuff you can do now if you're using WordPress, and different ways that you can kind of make some of this work yourself. So if you're not paying attention to it, it's kind of interesting. So I thought it was neat. SalesLoft was a new one that I didn't know. And it's helping you get information about people. So I'm going to be a little different. I'm just going to say, so it's basically, OSINT, but, commercialized, which is cool, I guess. I
would use number 5, LinkedIn for that.
I think LinkedIn is great for a lot of stuff. What I'm starting to get annoyed by, I don't know if it's happening to you. People will say, "Hey, I saw you on LinkedIn," and they'll send me an email, and I don't bother responding, right? Because it's like it doesn't fit anything I'm doing. It's like, does this strategy ever work for you? And now I'm noticing it's like, you must be on vacation because you didn't respond to me yet. But I sent you an email 4 days ago about how I found you on LinkedIn, and you're perfect for what I want to do. So you should explore.
It's the spray and pray. There's a lot of spray and pray on LinkedIn. Which you gotta,
sure is.
You can't be that on LinkedIn.
No. Boomerang. Do you use Boomerang?
I don't.
So the idea for Boomerang is that you can do follow-ups, and you can do follow-up emails, and you can remember it. So I can be like, okay, I'll follow up with you in 2 weeks. Boom. And you kind of get it set up and queued up, and in 2 weeks it fires off on its own. I've always thought things with this were interesting, so that you can schedule stuff and you can kind of keep in touch, and it's a good way to kind of keep everything moving. I haven't used it myself. Number 7, we both use Calendly. And I love this because, if you think about trying to arrange time with people, right? The classic way is we go back and forth over emails, or we go back and forth over a phone call, whatever else. What's great about Calendly is that somebody can just kind of, pop in a time that works for them. Now, when these things started, they were really clunky. What I find now is they remember enough about your schedule and your preferences that it gets really easy to do it. What I'll admit, though, is I'm actually right now looking at Acuity scheduling instead of Calendly because of number 8. Number 8 says you should use Zoom. I'm watching everybody kind of flock to Zoom. So right now, I have a subscription to GoToMeeting. Yep. Actually, I have GoToWebinar.
Yep.
And GoToWebinar includes GoToMeeting. And one of the things I love about Calendly is you can just automatically generate GoToMeeting meetings within Calendly. So somebody registers your time, they get their own stuff, it sends it's reminders, it's all fantastic. Well, there's 2 things I can't do then with Calendly. One, I can't charge anybody for the time, and I'm getting enough interest in having some ad hoc coaching and some subscription coaching. Well, Acuity says, hey, look, we'll integrate with Stripe. I love Stripe. We integrate with Stripe, and you could totally charge for that, and then we'll meter what they do and how it works and everything else. Now, I haven't completely unpacked it, But that's kind of interesting to me. Oh, and P.S. we natively integrate with Zoom. Well, Calendly does not yet. It's on their roadmap. And I've really loved working with Calendly. They've been great. So here's the thing. I don't know what you're paying, but the subscription for GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar/GoToMeeting is anywhere between like $60 and $100 a month, depending on what you're trying to get accomplished. Zoom is like $20 a month. And Zoom lets multiple people have cameras. Now, one of the things I've noticed is I actually use GoToMeeting more than I use GoToWebinar. And if I do a one-to-one coaching call with somebody, you can turn the camera on and you can see each other. What I've started to notice is that when I do some of these smaller group facilitations, right, we call them workshops, virtual workshops, I actually want everybody to have their camera on because I want to see them. I want to see them as they're talking, but also I don't want them playing solitaire or playing with their phone or doing 7 other things. I kind of want them paying attention. Zoom's great for that, and you can record on Zoom, and it's like 1/3 of the cost of GoToMeeting. So because I'm looking at trying out Zoom, it's actually forcing me to reevaluate whether Calendly works for me or not.
Just
now,
don't
use GoToMeting. Are you happy with it?
Yeah, just don't use Skype for Business.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I looked at that real quick. I had at one point both G Suite and Office 365, and I started noticing something recently for me. A lot of the collaboration I was trying to do with clients, and a lot of the collaboration I was trying to do with writing. I would send somebody a G Suite link, and they say, "Oh, sorry, we can't do that. We blocked it at our domain. We can't do it." There were enough attack vectors that people shut all that down. And they'd say, "Can you just send it to me in Word?" And I'd be like, "Okay." And I started noticing I was creating a lot of stuff in G Suite and then converting it to Word and then either trying to convert it back or use it. And I finally said, you know what? How about I just switch over? And so the last couple of months, I've actually switched over to Office 365. And I have to tell you, Microsoft's approach to this stuff has been absolutely fantastic because they keep rolling out new stuff. Now, is it great? No, not all of it. Is it largely good? Yes. But to your point, did I look at Skype for Business? Yes. Did I quickly figure out that wasn't going to work? Also, yes. No, and so it's interesting. Prezi, this one I disagree with. Please don't. Please don't. I think people overuse PowerPoint as it is. Prezi is a way to slick it up. There's a bunch of others that have come out over the years. And so they have these neat new wipes, and I can go here, we can bounce all around. And you're watching this and you're getting sick as somebody's trying to talk to you.
There's a funny story about me and Prezi. John, we were presenting at a conference, and John had some kind of conflict and couldn't be there, and sent me the presentation in Prezi, and I had no idea what any of it meant, like none, and there's just been a running joke that I hate Prezi, and to this day I still do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure someone right now is screaming about how awesome it is, and they really love it. That's great. And
if it's for you, then use it. You know what?
That's exactly right
for me. And as far as presentation tools go, and I know a lot of people are going to hate this as well, I switched to Google Slides primarily because I can edit and load them from anywhere, and that's really what I need. I loved Keynote. There was some backwards compatibility that Apple horribly broke in Keynote that caused issues for me, and the newer version broke some functionality that I used, and I was like, you know what? It's up on Google Slides, and if I need to share it with someone, I can share it, and we can collaborate, and boom, it's awesome.
Yep. Nope, I like it. Yeah,
not as many features. I mean, that's the struggle with Google Slides, and one of the reasons why people like things like Prezi is the features are limited, but I don't know. I think you just
I was just going to point out that I actually like that. I actually prefer that the features are limited because then you get to focus on your message. Like, seriously, if you've got a choice. In fact, do you remember the name Cliff Stoll? So he wrote Cuckoo's Egg?
Oh, yeah.
All right. I mean, we've been doing this long enough, right? So in the 90s, he actually did a lot more talking. And I remember being back when it was still Anderson Consulting. He came in, he did an event. And if I've never talked about this publicly, it was fascinating because he came in, he was barefoot. And the deal was no projector, so he just had, like, if you remember, like the overheads, like you had the gel, the acetate you put on top of it, and the markers. I think he did one diagram. He had to have a quart of chocolate milk, and about halfway through, he literally guzzled a quart of chocolate milk. It was the most fascinating thing in the world. He'd like jump up on tables and whatever else. But I remember him saying about PowerPoint, 20, 25 years ago was, I've never seen a life change because it had the latest diamond wipe slide transition, whatever. Nobody's been wowed because you had the perfect headline or you got the right graphic or whatever. He's like, they care about what you have to say. Do you have something of value? Add that, do that, boom, make it work. And I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So I think it works. Now, DocuSign, I think you've suggested this to me, haven't you?
Sure. DocuSign is great. I also use an OS 10 program called PDF Pen because there's no need for a fax machine ever again.
No. Yeah.
Please no. Please no.
Yeah. 1995 called it when it was technology back. So, all right. Well, that's a lot of stuff there. This other one I really enjoyed today, and it looks like the link that I gave people didn't work. I'm gonna either Harvard has changed their links. This is a Harvard Business Review. The title's correct. It's high performing teams need psychological safety. Here's how to create it. This is so important. One of the things we talk about a lot on this program, one of the things we talk about a lot in security, one of the things we talk a lot about in my practice is trust and being able to work as part of a team and needing to be able to trust each other. And one of the things, of course, I offer people is the ability to elevate performance. And I go, what does that mean? And that's where we have to start figuring this out. So here's what psychological safety is. It means that you're not going to be punished if you make a mistake. Well, it's a belief that you won't be punished if you make a mistake. Now, I always want to caveat this. Can you make a crucial mistake that gets you fired? Yes. But this goes hand in hand with accountability. If you get to real accountability, what people want is the ability to take responsibility for their actions and then be held accountable. But we often say, well, they're accountable because they screwed up. What if they did well? Do they get that as well? That's what people want. When you're talking about having psychological safety, what you're saying is somebody knows they can speak their mind. In fact, I'm working with a team right now. It's so remarkable how well they do this. They disagree so agreeably. It's not passive aggressive. It's not, okay, Paul, fine. You know what? We're going to have to agree to disagree. They'll say, Paul, I don't agree. Here's why. Here's what I think. Here's why. The other person says, oh, well, I see your point. I don't agree with it. Here's why. And that's how they operate. Like, it's not an act. Like they have the ability to speak their mind, to disagree, to try something. And then this is what I always love. If that team says, all right, well, let's try it. Let's try it, right? Think about what we just talked about DeRisking. Let's try it. Let's go measure it. Let's go see where that works. Okay, cool. Right. So I really like that. And it's what this does is it goes into it and it talks about how do you do this? How do you use these relationships? How do you use those positive emotions that lets you build trust, that lets you foster curiosity, that lets you have confidence? By the way, what do we think about when we talk about security? I've asked people for the last 2 years now, every time somebody says, well, we got a shortage. What do you think in fact, I'm curious, I don't know if you and I've talked about this, but what do you think one of the most important factors is if somebody wants to get started in security today? Don't worry about skills. I don't care where they went to college, if they went to college or anything else. Attributes. What do they need to have? Is it an integrity? Is it a grit? Is it a tenacity? What is it? What would you say?
Willingness
you think is
to
important?
learn new things.
Yeah, which is a curiosity, right? And that's what we keep coming out. So if you think about this, you want to be successful in security today. You want to be successful. You want your startup to be successful. You need to have things like trust and curiosity and work in these types of things, and that's how people do it. So anyway, there's good stuff. There's a bunch of ideas in here, including speak human to human, like talk to people. I've gone through different stages. I appreciate the virtual nature. I appreciate I'm on the beach. I got 4 kids, so I try to minimize time away. I'll tell you something that's new with me now, though, is any chance I can to go work with a client face to face and work with a team face to face, I take it. And then we can do stuff virtually, but I still like reconnecting face to face is so much more important. And then when you realize that they're people, that there's different things that they do, and you can relate to them as people, it makes such a difference. So I think that's important. And there's a bunch of other things in there that I thought really good. The 6 must reads if you're at a startup with 30 or more people. So there are a couple of things that caught up to me here, and I really like this. 30 to 50 people is where you go from being a family to being a company, and everything starts to get really hard. Yeah. By the way, I've talked to a lot of people in the security space that had a team of 3 people 3 years ago, and now their team is 24. Mm-hmm. When they joined, there were 24. Now there's 300. Yeah. So these things, a lot of the stuff that we put in there, it's taking a look at how you can get this done. And I wanted to point something else, because I'm pretty sure you and I talked about this on air somewhere in the last couple of months. But one of their quick bullet points on this is research surface by, I'm quoting, organizational culture consultant Sheila Margolis, that the best size of a group for decision-making is 5. Now, she said it's 4.6, it's 5. Mm-hmm. But after which the number of possible social interactions begin to explode. And we've talked about this. This is not new. This is I've known this for 20 years. It's the right size to do a startup. It's the right size to have a team. It's the right size to work on a project. It's the right size to do breakouts. It's the right size for any of these types of things. So I thought it was neat. So there's a ton of stuff in here about things that you can do. And one of the ones that I really liked was give each person $30 to spend on features.
Interesting.
I love that.
I like the 2 pizza team. I think it's a great concept.
It's a good rule, isn't it?
Jeff Bezos, was that his thing?
Yep. Yeah. If you can't feed the team with 2 pizzas, the team's too big.
Yeah, he said.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Between 6 and 10 people. But I like the culture that creates. Like your collaboration team's going to be sharing pizza, right? I like it.
That's a good point too. Yeah. There's a bunch of questions in here that I like, right? What would be stupid for us not to do in the next 90 days? I think that's really good, But like this idea of giving people $30 to invest, what I really like about it is if you give people dollars, real dollars, and you see where they vote with their dollars, what a difference. I think that makes a really good idea. The other piece that I'll put here too, and we need to bring Matt Alderman back and have this conversation with him a little bit too. Nail your positioning statement. But here's what I really like. You might be revisiting your position statement around 30 employees, but not creating one. You need to have a positioning statement before you hit 30 people,
right.
But so many people don't. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things around positioning in Al Trott, and I've got the book behind me, right? The immutable positioning and everything else. So it's got some insights in there. By the way, this works even if you're internal. Your team needs to be a positioning statement. You have to think these things through, and that's just kind of the way. It wouldn't
be a show if we didn't mention Shark Tank. And if you watch the show closely, you can see them having a discussion about the positioning of the company. And if they're at 2 opposite ends of the spectrum, the investor's like, at some point, they're like, nope, I'm out. And a lot of times they're out because they've just fundamentally disagreed about the positioning of the company. And that's cool.
In fact,
you don't want an investor.
Kevin and Mark do that.
Yes, exactly.
Kevin and Mark do that all the time.
And Kevin both will do that more often than not. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and as you put out on Facebook, we got to get one of them on the program.
Oh yeah,
for certain.
Oh yeah,
or all of them on the program for certain, because I think it'd be fun.
Absolutely.
By the way, it says you need to designate somebody to be in charge of security, if even part-time. You and I have been doing this long enough. Anytime you do something part-time, it means it's not really done full-time, and that means it's easy to neglect. But here's what I like. This is a mainstream article about startups. And one of the things we've said before is that we're looking at the security of business and the business of security. If you don't have to be a security startup to listen to the show and learn from it, and if you are a security startup, by the way, who's focusing on your security? So it's good, man. I like this. Anyway, I think it's good stuff. There's a whole bunch of others in there, and then it has links to all sorts of other stuff. Is there anything that stood out to you beyond the 2 pizza rule that you thought was kind of like?
I like the 2 pizza rule. I got to go back and digest there's a lot of stuff in that article.
There is, and that's why I just want to call out a couple of things that I thought were really kind of interesting in it. All right, last piece, another of the Tomas Tungos. It's good stuff. This is a cash conversion cycle, but here's what I want to point out to it. It's understanding, right? So the cash conversion cycle, and this is for a software company in specific, it's your sales cycle plus your accounts receivable latency minus your accounts payable latency. So basically, how long does it take you to convert somebody from the first engagement to they signed a contract? How long does it take from when they sign the contract to when you get paid, right? So that's the receivable latency. And then how long does it take you from when you get a bill to, when you pay it? The reason this starts to matter is, and it's got some different examples in here where like your cycle might be 45 days. So like every 45 days, right? That means that you're getting money in, but it's got a long cycle example. It's 330 days. You might as well call that a year. So wait, so you're telling me what this matters is how quickly do you get your cash back?
Right.
How quickly do you have money you can reinvest in something else versus how long is your money tied up? And that's going to influence things like your raises, your funding raises and what you go and look for. It's going to influence your liquidity. It's going to influence your decision making. I mean, this is why sometimes you have to have a longer cycle. It sucks. By the way, I would argue if you're on the long side of that cycle, do everything in your power to get to the shorter side of that cycle. But that's me. I don't like those long cycles. I think you can make the point. Anyway, I wanted to point that out because as you and I have now said a couple times this program, you and I run across people who don't know those answers. They need to know those answers. They become really important.
You can invest in some stocks, Michael?
I'm curious what you think about this, and I'm going to pull it up real quick too. So it basically said, here's 3 cybersecurity stocks to buy now. I'm trying to remember where this came across. And if you pull it up, it's one of those things that jumps right into the video. So that's always really fun. But what they basically said is, by the way, this is a hot market. So, I always point this out. It's not hot. It's totally hot. It's not hot. It's totally hot. This just came out and they said, okay, here's the deal. Security matters. And, right. All right. I'm just going to point this out. Cybercrime costs the global economy between $450 billion and $600 billion a year. Hey, how big is our global economy? Do you know? I wrote about this.
No idea.
I'm not expecting that you read it. I've got this from memory, but it's like somewhere close to $80 to $90 trillion a year. Do you know what $450 billion out of the global economy is as a percentage?
Small. Yeah,
it's like 0.5%.
Gotcha.
In other words, okay, shrug. Right, it's not a big deal. That said, is security spend on the rise? Yes, and then so they're talking about all sorts of really numbers in it, and they say so. Here's where you should spend your money. If you're going to invest in a stock, they're saying that right now, $86 billion are spent on security a year, and by 2020, it's going to go up to over $100 billion a year spent. And that cybersecurity firms are going to make the most of the money. And so it says the 3 you should do: Palo Alto Networks, Checkpoint, and Cisco Systems. Now, what's interesting is you and I covered Palo Alto in the last couple of weeks. They set up a $100 million fund. And Cisco is one of the next stories we're going to talk about today. And they are acquiring people left and right. Like, it feels almost like Cisco has renewed its push into security. I'm sure someone's bristling at that.
They're trying to redefine themselves and redefine likely some of the categories in security. I won't make any investment advice at all. Like, I'm not comfortable doing that ever, really, probably. It's just not my thing. I do have my opinions about the success of those companies and their position in the market, which doesn't necessarily mean you should invest in them or not. Just want to put that out there. I think Palo Alto has a really great opportunity to own some categories, own some spaces, and really do well in the market. I think Cisco, like I said, is trying to reinvent themselves inside of security. It remains to be seen whether or not they're going to be successful doing that. Checkpoint has a lot of great solutions. I haven't seen much from them lately personally, but they do have some great solutions in the market, and I have talked to happy customers of Checkpoint. That's what I can say about those 3 companies. Investment, I don't know.
And I'll tell you the thing. So let's go back to our play bigger, right? The Checkpoint was the category king. If you had a firewall, it was a Checkpoint firewall. Juniper, NetScreen had stuff, right? And Juniper had stuff, and Cisco had stuff, and right. Microsoft tried for a while, and there were others, and but really it was a Checkpoint. You had Checkpoint, and then Palo Alto came, and Palo Alto is the category king, and they kind of changed the category, right? It wasn't just you had to have a firewall; did you have a next generation firewall?
Oh yeah.
For what it's worth, I still don't know what that means, but hey, that's really kind of fascinating. So the Palo Alto thing I got, the Checkpoint software, that was kind of a surprise for me in Cisco, right? They're a venerable company. I think it's really kind of interesting. You noticed it wasn't any of the unicorn stocks. It wasn't any of the new IPOs. Like these are not really new companies, even Palo Alto. They're not that new. So I thought it was interesting. Those of you watching, I'm really curious. What do you think? How many of you are using these companies? Do you think, to your point, we're not in the advice game here, but I thought it was interesting.
And not in terms of investing in stock, I should say. As far as where you want to put your investments in security companies, sure, we just kind of, covered that. In any case.
All right, Nationwide, they are not only on your side, they have a $100 million investment fund. Here's what I thought was really interesting. 2 parts I'm going to call out, and I should have highlighted these because I cut and pasted them, so I'll try to fix those in the show notes. It's a move meant to help the insurer stay relevant in the insurance and financial services industries at a time of great technological change. We've talked about cyber insurance and insurance in general. And I've had a chance I've done a couple series on it now. I've started getting deeper into the world of insurance. The reason that so many companies are excited about cyber insurance is that insurance as an industry is it needs something to revitalize its profit margins. It needs something to help it get better at what it does. And so this kind of goes that way. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they've acknowledged that. Here's the second part, though, that I think is just as interesting. Their investments. They said, this is where we want to focus. Retirement planning, okay, whatever. Insurance and financial services, yeah, no surprise. And protecting the information of consumers. Right. There you go. So they have flat out said, we got $100 million and we're going to go take a look at security startups. I've got a couple people, I'm going to see if they'll come on the show if they're willing to, at other large organizations. They're not at Nationwide. Some are at insurers, some are at household brand names that you would know. And they are meeting with security startups on a weekly basis, looking for anybody that can help them solve problems that they don't even know they have yet.
Security startups taste so good. Oh, sorry.
Exactly. He's got it. What I think is also interesting in this then is two things. It's not just technology companies now setting up funds. It's not just in the private equity money coming in. It's not just the venture funds setting it up. You have household names saying, nope, we're taking money and we're going to start investing in startups and we're going to pay attention to those startups. And that means that either they want to profit from it or they want to be able to purchase them and bring them in-house. It means they're moving that research and development off book for them to maintain their profitability, for them to maintain whatever they need to with their investors or their board. They don't have time for that risk. And so what you're finding is the way that they're de-risking is they're moving it off book. So they'll say, yeah, you know what? I'll spend $100 million, by the way, right, over the next 10 years probably. And we're going to look for some stuff that we think is interesting. And if it's interesting, great, we'll bring them in-house. What that means then is we're going to see a lot more exits that go to that. So you've got a startup, and today you might be saying, well, I can IPO, or we're just going to bootstrap it, or we'll go to one of the big companies. Yeah, or a consumer company is going to buy you because you're solving a really cool problem that they have. So I just, and you and I very early in the program said, like, don't badmouth people. Like, just go do good work and make a difference. And all I'm pointing out is we keep seeing this as a trend coming back and back and back. Companies are looking for solutions in security and privacy. They are looking for exits. They are creating all sorts of new funds. There's a ton of ways to get yourself funded if that's what you need. But if it's something you're interested in, I don't see any shortage of opportunity in this space right now. And on that, last one of the week, Cisco acquired SpringPath, $320 million. Now, the best I could find, and I cross-checked Crunchbase and Owler on this, the funding is reported as $34 million over one round, but it's papered as a B round, which means like, well, so was there an equity? Like, I don't, that doesn't feel complete to me, but gosh, that's a hefty multiple. I mean, we see some of these things trade at like 5 or 6, at least over investment. This is almost 10 times. It's, 8, 9 times over multiple. Wow. That's pretty hefty. But again, SpringPath develops an enterprise-grade data platform that enables server hosting applications to store, manage, and protect data. I honestly don't know what that means without unpacking it better, but to protect data.
Someone thinks Cisco is going to get a big return on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it was a slow week. It's we're coming up to the end of the summer, and I think we'll start seeing stuff pick up again as the year goes on. But that's some of the stuff that we got. From a journey perspective, I am recalibrating. We told everybody last week about the brain audit stuff and some of our books. I'm working back through the books and figuring out the category. For me, it's value translation, and it's helping people use straight talk to translate that value into understanding. Helps people create the connection that lets us elevate performance and accelerate results. And I'm now going back through all that and unpacking that and taking a look at it. We're looking at doing some high performance, right? Individual one-to-one coaching. I've had a number of requests for it. And so I'm like, all right, let's do it. Looking at redoing some workshops and thinking about the way some of these things work. So it's exciting. Like I've realized it's not a pivot. This is, it's almost like a correction. Like I've kind of paused and I've got a couple great clients I really love working with. And I'm looking at now how to help more people and, maybe manage to enjoy a little bit more time with my family at the same time. So it's been good. It's been kind of fun. How about you guys? How's the summer been?
Good. Well, we've been focusing on Security Weekly as of late, as we're kind of beginning one of our sales cycles here at Security Weekly. And I have, as Michael and I met this morning and saw some of the results of me kind of reevaluating some of the value propositions for Security Weekly specifically. And I'm excited. Because Michael didn't have much in the way of corrections of what I had put together.
No, I was really excited about it.
I nailed it.
I have some questions, but otherwise, I really liked it. So it's good.
It's good.
No, it's exciting. Yeah, and I like the fact too that we talked about the ability for people to partner with us. And as I've already said, what I love about this platform is it's advancing the industry and benefiting the community at the same time. And I've thoroughly enjoyed we call them sponsors, but the people that partner with this program I've learned much from them. I've enjoyed those conversations, and some of the things you were telling me in terms of the benefits that they get in return, I think is fantastic. And what I hope too is that if you're listening and you've gotten benefit because we've brought you people that you didn't know about, and we've shown you and helped you cut through the noise to figure out who, because we've done that diligence, and Paul and company, we're picking people that we like. That's a benefit. So let us know the benefit you're getting from that, because then we're going to keep finding great people to be part of this program to keep solving these types of problems. So that was exciting.
If you want to sponsor the show, sales@securityweekly.com. Happy to do that. Make suggestions.
Perfect.
We're happy to use especially if you're a listener and you get benefit out of it, right? So make some suggestions. We'd love it. Thank you everyone for listening and watching this episode of Startup Security Weekly. We will see you next time.